You're listening to The Ripple Affect with your hosts, Cheech and Nibby, a podcast that explores how individual change has the capacity to affect the whole.
From neuroscience to donuts, we're two sisters with a deep curiosity for ancient wisdom and modern knowledge, and we're obsessed with learning alongside you because we don't know. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to a bonus episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. I'm your co-host, Chiara, aka Cheech, and I'm very excited to resurrect a part of our conversation from last kitchen table talk that got left on the cutting room floor, so to speak. This part didn't quite fit into the flow of our topic around beingness that you may have heard in episode 18 and 19, but I did feel like it still held a lot of value, hence this special bonus. You're about to dive right into the conversation, as always, and you'll hear me ask Isabel about hyper-independence. From there, we weave in personal stories and reflections on integration work that we've done and the significance of community support, self-worth, and one of my favorite parts where Isa frames up problem solving in a way I've never heard before and how it plays a crucial role in personal growth and emotional resilience. Oh, and we have a juicy piece on the importance of values and how they affect our lives. My hope is that this bonus will help you reflect and build some practical strategies for emotional and mental well-being through asking for support and knowing you're not alone as you hear us talk candidly about our own struggles. So pull up a chair at our kitchen table and enjoy hanging out with us for a bit. And I will catch you next week. Also, you had said something earlier in the conversation about hyper independence. And I realized I hadn't heard that term maybe before. And it was kind of self-explanatory enough. But I was curious for you, like where you started to pick up or notice that was something for you and where you learned it, if you learned it.
Yeah, I think I have a better understanding of this now for myself. When it first started, I came upon it through this overreaching responsibility, this tendency to think and feel as though everything was my responsibility. And I learned that that wasn't the truth, and that I'm not responsible for anybody else through Al-Anon, really, through my Al-Anon program, really just starting to utilize program to understand that, no, I'm responsible for myself. I'm not responsible for anybody else. But then from there, the way it kind of led into my understanding now, what I call hyper-independence, is actually attached to the feelings of loneliness. Now, I think that I understand that that comes from not having a secure attachment as a child. So I don't believe that I gained a secure attachment to my caregiver as a child, and therefore there's a sense of loneliness and a sense of insecurity and not knowing that anybody will actually be there for me on a deep level. So what I did to cope was I became independent and self-reliant. And then it developed into an over responsibility because I felt as though I was responsible solely for myself and for my survival and for my own care.
And I think there is something to be said that like a lot of people feel that way. And there's outward messaging like, yeah, you do have to take responsibility for yourself. What makes it unhealthy? No, what did you find in your life that was unhelpful about that?
Well, that's where I believe it started. And then because that tendency, it turned into not only am I this way with myself, I'm this way with others. And I think it's my responsibility to fix the problems, to fix the tension in the room, to help the people that don't feel good feel better at all costs. My role was not to take care of myself. It was to take care of others and make sure that I didn't need anything from anyone so that I could take care of other people. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't need I had no needs.
Damn, right? Not good.
No.
Everyone has needs.
Yeah.
I have no needs is not real.
No. And it's an impossible problem. It's an impossible problem. An impossible problem is a problem that cannot be solved.
Yeah.
And it's so unhealthy because this hyper independence leads to thinking and feeling that support is weakness.
Yeah.
That vulnerability is wrong. That not being able to do it by yourself equals failure. And not only that, like on the deeper level of not having that caregiver and that needs being met, if I can't give myself the things that I need, then I can't be safe, secure, or loved.
And that's the loop, because that's the motivation that makes you keep trying to do it all on your own, because you do need to feel loved.
And there are certain needs I can give myself. But when there are needs that I can't give myself, like community, social interaction, healthy, loving relationships from the outside in as well as with myself, the idea that I have to do it all by myself.
Yeah, because support is a part of a healthy system. It makes me think of lower socioeconomic BIPOC people where it's like, yeah, do it all on your own. Well,
bootstrap.
Yeah. Well, I might need a little assistance because I've started on the outside rung of the race. I'm on the furthest most part of the track.
400 years behind.
Yeah. Like systematically have had situations where I do need that grant, or I do get to have that supportive government service just to get me to an even level of not even just competition, but just life.
And that's not work. For me, like when I take that idea and I put it onto my own, process of understanding myself, it's like, no, I did need help to understand these things. I didn't come to this realization just overnight. It took me years to understand and practice self-care and minding my business and having business to mind and really focusing on what I was in control of and what was my healthy responsibility. And then it took more years to learn about my codependence and what that looks like and how to show up in relationships in a healthy way. And then it took more years to learn through school and learning psychology about my attachment and about how that affects me. And I'm still learning all of those things. So and that's all work. Yeah. And I have privilege that I've been able to put myself in those positions and openness enough to have accessibility to them and become industrious enough to figure it out on how I'm going to do it. But it's work. Doing the processes to help yourself isn't always easy.
It can keep you stuck. It can keep you not changing. It can keep you suffering. To try to find out about yourself. Like you just said, you did these different processes up until psychology, and that was your way in. And someone else might take a path of spirituality or of
therapy.
Exactly. Or it just whatever. There's
psychedelics, or
there's so many
conversations with your family, or
writing, being
traveling.
creative.
There's so many creative.
So many different ways of getting that pathway more clear for yourself to learn about yourself, to know who you are so that you can help yourself. I feel a lot of paths to helping yourself, a lot of paths to learning about yourself lead to having love for yourself.
That's a goal.
That it seems like a simplified way of saying it, but that's been my experience, because love is a door opener for more support and different resources and change. I think it can be that. Like, it's been for me.
Especially if you haven't practiced self-love ever, because that's a big distinction. When you start to feel your emotions and what you're going through, and then meet yourself with love and understanding and grace and space and acceptance, that's, for me, has been a very powerful tool for change, because it's a different way of interacting with myself. I'm treating myself in a new, more loving way, which the old way was self-criticism and being hard on myself and feeling overwhelm of emotions that I'm not capable of doing what I want to do with myself and with my life. And those feelings suck.
Yeah, that's well said. That's so well said. They do. And that part is work. Just to reiterate what you were saying, having self-acceptance, having grace, having a kinder way to speak to yourself, if that wasn't what you were modeled and taught, or just comes naturally maybe, that's not easy to override the programming, like a computer override program. It's got one computer program running. You have to stop that program and start another.
You have to go to your task manager and be like, okay, how am I going to manage this? I don't want to manage this with this software. I want to manage it with this new software.
Yes. And that takes time. In my experience, it has taken time and it has taken support. So I'm so glad you touched on that, because that's so good. Everything you just said was so good.
Ah, thank you.
Do you feel like you can remember where you didn't have the things to listen to on your walks, the literature to turn to, where you started to try to collect some of those things? And the reason I'm asking you this, I was reflecting on my 20s and I was like, I don't think I was working on myself at all. Like, I was a crazy person. I was just flying through trying to survive. And then I think I started working, quote unquote, on myself in my 30s. And wow, what a difference that makes. So
yeah, I was laughing to myself in my 20s. I'm like, I was so aloof. I am so grateful that I have good angels and good friends, because I don't know how I survived that. Oh my God. Where was I? Because I definitely wasn't in my mind or body that I can recall ever.
Oh man, when I look at the difference, that's exactly how I would describe it. I was not in my body. Things were running the show that I wasn't aware that things were running the show.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I was in the driver's seat.
No.
But I guess I will take that back a little bit, because there are times I can think of in my 20s where I was very clearly, intentionally living my life the way I wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Because I moved to Hawaii in my 20s. I had very clear intentions for myself of what I wanted my life to be like, and took action on that. And I felt good about my choices a lot of times. But there was definitely programming still running that I was unaware of. To your question, though, I can't really put a finger on a time where I didn't have those resources. But I will say that, again, just the internal experience of being not good and having that be an indicator to I need something to help myself. I don't feel good. I want to get back to a place where I really feel at peace inside my body. I think my life really reflected that, where I was like, this isn't good. The mindset I have is, I don't know how to do, I'm not coping, and really reaching out for help in those times to be able to get to where now I have resources, I have community, I have tools, I have spirituality, I have therapy, I have these things that I have added to my toolbox over time. But I think it was just feeling really bad. Feeling pain, feeling out of controlness, feeling like I couldn't cope. I couldn't figure things out, feeling like I had to figure things out and fix things, and I couldn't do it.
Thank you for sharing that, truly, because that's what strikes me about what you just said is, before I even got into personal development, when you were talking about you moved to Hawaii and you had clear intention, in my 20s, I was in college. And so there was this structure. And I really remember, not consciously, but it was so important to me to get a degree and to do well in school, to have A's, there was such a focus on that structure being the thing that could validate and give me some value and give me some worth. And it was all external. And so when I did graduate, barely, like my grades were fine, but my emotional and mental and physical well-being was really taxed. And I had that degree, and it's a piece of paper, with no guarantee of job and not a lot of passion behind it. I think that was what really plummeted me into a crisis of self, meaning, who am I? What am I doing? What did I do all this for? There's got to be something more. But for me, I realized that in my own journey, similar of I'm not well, it took a lot to try to boost that part in me that goes, and I need help, and that's okay. And I connected now, looking back, to worthiness, my self-worth, and different programs that were running. I was just so hard on myself that if I was suffering, it was my problem to bear. And it was because of me. I was the problem. There was something wrong with me. It was a theme, kind of a tape, a loop. I was just trying to solve the problem that was me.
I can't say that there was a worthiness component that I was aware of, but I can say there was a problem solving that was a strong intention. It was, these are issues that I can't solve. And someone led me into the door of a 12-step program. And I was still trying to solve the problem of something completely different than what I was actually there for. And then through that journey is where I realized, and deeper and deeper. Like we were talking about how I'm like just this never ending onion. Am I just like, is there ever going to be a time where there's not a layer to go deeper on and another thing to have to look at?
No.
I don't think there is. I think I'm a never ending onion.
You said something, I want you to go back because you said it very quickly and I think it was so apropos. You were focused on a problem that wasn't the problem. No, you said
I was trying to solve the problem of other people in my life and how to fix that. And I didn't realize, oh no, the problem was never external. It was always my reactions to that thing, my actions in that thing, my role in that thing, my mindset. All the things that had been affected were me. I was the one that was irritable and unreasonable and trying to force solutions and losing my shit and crying on the floor and not able to cope. I was that one. I was the one that could deal with the things that were going on in me. And I didn't get there because I wanted to solve me. I wasn't trying to fix myself at that time. I had externalized everything. And I learned, and I'm learning, that's not how this works.
I think it'd be helpful if you feel comfortable sharing the context of what those external circumstances were, what you were trying to solve. Because you said, that you were the problem, or you said that you were the way you were reacting to those things. And I think it could be helpful if you felt comfortable to share.
Yeah, I think I've shared it before. That 12-step program that I was referring to that I originally found was Al-Anon, which is for friends and families of addicts and alcoholics. And so it was dealing with addiction and alcoholism that I was trying to solve and figure out, that I found myself in my own 12-step program that was designated and designed for me as the friend or family member of the alcoholic or addict. I think that is important clarification, that type of interaction is maddening to try and solve. It's an impossible problem, right? Which is really impossible to solve. It's an impossible problem. And it leads to feeling like you're a victim, feeling like you're crazy, feeling like you can't possibly keep going that way, and can lead to depression. There's just so much. Impossible problems are, they will drive you. There's nowhere to go. You're just driving in circles,
The power of being able to identify the problem, identifying that, oh, this is an impossible problem, for instance, or, oh, this is a problem I don't know enough about to call it a problem yet.
Yeah, and it goes to that well-defined versus ill-defined problem. And the definition of a problem is that your current state is not equal to your goal state. So
wait, say that again?
Your current state is not equal to your goal state.
That's how I can define anything that I would name a problem as currently what I'm going through is not what I want it to be.
Yeah. And so matching those two is problem solving, and there's strategies for problem solving.
Matching those two meaning?
So your current state equals your goal state. Serenity.
So you have to identify what it is that you're wanting, what that goal state of being, right? That's interesting because that does take self-reflection. It does take worthiness, because I got to know that I'm worth the things that I want, meaning I want to be well, or I want to have a better relationship with money, or I want to have a better relationship with another human being. And that goal is worthy of my pursuit, meaning I am a person who does and can and deserves because I want it, and not from an entitled place, like I deserve it because I should have it, but I exist and I have things that I want, and I'm in pain now, and I don't deserve to be in pain just permanently.
Yeah. Yeah. And that part is where that representation comes in, where you understand the problem. you have to understand the problem. You have to know where you're at in order to get somewhere else on a map. I can't give you a map and be like, "Okay, get here," but you don't know where you are.
Don't understand the map.
Or you don't know where you are on the map.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it says you are here, so that you can have some bearings to get to where you are from somewhere else. But if you look at a map and you're just like, get there, but where am I on the map? You have to understand the problem. You have to know what's going on. That's part of how you start to go into problem solving and gather the pieces, know the facts about it. You want to know all the information. You want the techniques, the skills, the methods that are required to get you to where you're going to go.
I think about that with Brene Brown and like resilience or other kind of resilience work I've read, the ability to not react right away to a situation, but assess if you have all the information. The book I was reading was Dare to Lead, and it was talking about workplace scenarios where one person will have a pretty calm reaction to news, for instance, of like they're going to lay off this whole division, and someone who has this resiliency training can first, even though that may bring up emotions, that can bring up panic. You probably know more of the brain neuroscience of it, but when it first hits me in layman's term of like your emotions can take over.
Yeah, you reach your threshold of excitation at negative 40 hertz.
But that Dr. Thayer and Issa talk about that in episode 2 or in our re-release of episode 2. You could listen to that. But yeah, so that emotional hit, but then that resiliency training, one of the tools is like ask questions. Oh, where did you hear that? The coworker comes in, everyone's getting laid off. Oh, where did you hear that? Oh, didn't you hear someone said they saw it in the email? Who said they saw it in the email? Well, I don't know. I didn't really. Oh, okay. Well, what do you know? Well, it's probably true because the other division got laid off. Well, but does that really mean that is that, and not challenging someone thinking that they're wrong? It could be true. But prior to having all the information, is it time to freak out yet?
Yeah, because then from that point, your mind will go, could go, not everybody, could go a million miles an hour to what's going to happen, the domino effect. If I get laid off here, then I have to do that. And then what am I going to do there? And then and then naturally we're trying to solve these problems ahead of time. But you might be using all this extra energy, not solving a problem that's actually there or real.
Yeah. My husband will say that to me. Like, how does he put it? These aren't problems. These aren't problems. These are not problems because of the anxiety I have, right? Like that is anxious thought. It is this worry or fixation on a future that has not arrived yet.
It's neurotic, that's like neuroticism is characterized by that, high worry, high anxiety, high stress, tendency to let the mind take over and loop and cause internal chaos, and constant attention is given to things that aren't right in front of them.
Mm-hmm. And just in case you didn't know,
me right in front of me.
Well, I was gonna say like
them. I'm AKA Issa.
Hi, have you met me? My name's Chiara. I'm a neurotic. Like,
and it's hard. It's funny studying psychology where I told you this. It's nearly impossible to not self-analyze when you're a psychology student. I have this tendency to want to appear put together or evolved or sophisticated or all these things. And when it comes right down to it and you're really looking at the characteristics of this thing and being like, I do that. I am neurotic. Or being an ACA, an adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, they have the laundry list. And it's this whole list of characteristics that you may experience if you were raised in an alcoholic or dysfunctional home. Some days they read that list and I'm like, yep, check. Yes. This is ridiculous. And it's funny though, because it is perception and mindset is so valuable in it, because some days it isn't true. Some days only 2 of them stand out to me to say, oh yeah, that resonates, that is resonant in my life right now. And the other ones I'm like, no, I feel good on those. I feel good about that. I don't feel like I do that. There's so much to that mindset component and cultivating mental conviction, because that follow through. And I thought about, Mark Divine and his programs. He's a Navy SEAL trainer who has a Zen practice, and I always resonate with him. And he has a podcast and has a program. And
I went through a little bit of it. I really did like it as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy his approach to that. The mindset part is so powerful when it comes to change, because it's that personal accountability, that interpersonal accountability to yourself. And I shared a story with you recently about how I was having a hard time in doing some internal inner child work and just having realizations, and therapy can be heavy and just doing the work. And I hadn't been exercising in the morning. And that's something that's really important to me. And that makes me feel good and helps my self-confidence and helps me know I'm taking care of myself. And I have community in it. And it's just positive in my life. And I acknowledge that. And I hadn't been doing it. And so I told myself that night, when I realized I had been being really hard on myself and really harsh to my inner child and really asking myself to perform at a level that was unfair to my inner child, to my little self. I was expecting way too much out of myself and really being harsh about it. And so I was like, okay, I want to be nicer to me. That's not okay. I'm sorry to me. And knowing that I wanted to work out in the morning, I was like, okay, I know that if I told a friend I would work out with them at 6 a.m. tomorrow, I would fucking get up and go. So you know what? I am my friend, and I'm going to tell myself I'm going to get up and work out with you tomorrow morning. And my alarm went off at 5:30, and I was like, oh, I told my friend I would. Okay, here we go. And I got up and I went and worked out. It worked, that commitment to self, that conviction, like when you make your mind up that you're going to do something and there's no shifting it. They say the second you start second guessing or contemplating with yourself back and forth in your own mind, you lost it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's gone. That conviction is so powerful.
That really blew me away. The moment you start to have the conversation, the negotiation,
internal dialogue
about it, you've already lost. It was so enlightening because I thought I could win that. Sometimes I win it, sometimes I don't. But when you said that, that means prior to that moment was where the work would have needed to go so that I don't have the feelings that I can negotiate. Not can in a domineering, authoritative way, but in the way that conversation with myself doesn't come up because it's already been decided.
We've decided together, myself and myself, that we're going to do this. So there's not that internal dialogue, me listening, me hearing, going back and forth, because we're on the same page, right? We figured out this is what we want to do.
This is what we want to do. And that's where I struggle a lot of times. I don't know if you have any advice on this, because I know that there are things that I want. It's very clear to me. I want to do mobility work. I want to eat in a certain way. I want to have relationships that look a certain way, or I want to get some tasks done. I want to do those, but the want alone isn't strong enough.
Yeah, I think that's where the why work comes in. Why do you want to do those things? It's like with any goal, you want to know your why. Why do you want that goal? Why do you want to do mobility work? Why is that important to you? And you keep drilling down until you get to the true essence of why the fuck you actually want to do that. And if it is meaningful or it isn't.
Right.
Because you can get to the bottom and be like, oh, I just wanted attention and I actually just want to be loved. Oh, fuck. Okay, well.
And mobility work isn't going to give me love and attention.
I mean, yeah, sometimes you get to the bottom of it. And if you're willing to go deep enough, you come to a realization that, oh, that's actually a need that's not being met. And I'm trying to reach it in this way, and maybe it can be reached there, and maybe it can't. Maybe it needs something different.
Maybe that's not the problem-solving area that's actually going to solve the problem.
Right. But then sometimes it gets you to the place where you go, oh, because I want to feel good in my body. Sometimes you anchor it to something in the future, which can be really powerful. Like, I want to be a healthy grandparent. I want to be around longer. I want to be an influence to my nieces. I want to have healthy habits.
What I hear you doing is tying it to values, right? That was I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast before, but it's worth re-mentioning. When I started doing values work was something that really opened up a lot for me in the form of who I really am, what really was driving me, meaning what is really actually at the core of not just what I want, but who I am. The distinction of I'm acting out my values, whether I realize what they are or not.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't do the work of taking a sheet of paper with a big list of values and circling the ones just today even that meant something to me, and then writing out what it is that looks like to have a value of freedom, it gave me a lot of insight into why I get so triggered when I'm not feeling free. It gave me a lot of insight into what does freedom really actually look like and mean? How much lack of it do I actually have, and what would I need to do to close the gap if that really is important to me? If love is really important to me, how am I showing up and loving myself? And what would that look like? Fleshing out not just the word, but why it's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then having those, not in a rigid way, but having those values. I think I did like top 2 and then had a few other ones. And I'll say it in transparency. I took this from the US military. That's where I got inspired to do it. I got a role as an Army drill instructor. And in order to do that, I did a lot of research about the Army. And I looked at their core values and I looked at how it was presented. And they had the core values, their 5 things. And then they had...
Do you remember what they were?
Oh, I could pull it up, but I don't.
Where's Jamie?
Yeah. Once again, would anyone like to be our Jamie? I'll call for Jamie. What is that? Like a will, like a, no, not a will call. Open call.
Open call.
Open call.
Casting. We're having an open casting
for Jamie, a Jamie version. Your name just does or does not have to be Jamie, but the Ripple Effect Pod would like to cast you.
Also, if you'd like
role.
to donate to help cover the cost of Jamie,
Shameless,
there's a link in our bio.
Shameless plug. Issa, that was supposed to go in the break. Do we need to take a break now?
No.
I do not remember the values, but they had very clear statements about what it meant to live that value as an Army person.
I got to shout out Rio Anderson for this, because when I started doing values work, or the first time I ever really did values work, was through a open community forum that he led on community values and based on our independent values. And he led us through a whole seminar work, and we got to come up with some core values for our community that was really amazing up in Southern Humboldt. It was really empowering and gave me a lot of clarity on my own values and what I want in my small community, and actually what I want to see in the world as based off of my value system. So that was really helpful. So thank you, Rio. If you're listening.
For sure. And I was so grateful to be a part of that day as well as a facilitator, because we had to do learning about how to facilitate that work, and then watching the way that people interacted and participated as community members, and just the whole process and system. And someone else was there that day actually leading that facilitation. I should look it up and put it in the show notes because he was great. Because I thought it was so impactful, I took pictures of all of the notes, because the next stage of that was to go create which is also a part of what the U.S. government U.S. military does really well, is they then take those values, they write out what each of them look like so that you can act like that. And then they have their bylaws, or what, that's not the right word, but their code of ethics. They're like, this is what it means to be in the Army. This is what it means to be in the Marine Corps. If you don't do this, you're not living this job,
our value system
this way. And that's, I think, the difference where I noticed, and I went to the Marine Corps too and looked at theirs, because my husband was a Marine Corps officer, and I learned a lot about him, because it's true. You look at the way they lead their lives, their way of being is not just influenced by these words, it's integrated in to who they are.
Identity.
And it's integrated into their identity. And it is, I don't want to say it's easier for them to live, but man, it's a lot clearer. They don't have to make so many decisions. They don't have to negotiate as much, depending, not someone could go through that and totally reject it. I'm just saying, I think once a Marine, always a Marine. You don't really take it out of them, because there is those core values that are inside them.
Maybe it's not the values of the military that you align with, but if you can find your own value system and then use that as a beacon to live your life after and model your being after, that sounds dope. I want to do that.
Make priorities.
We should do this.
We should do this. Why are we not doing this?
That would be fun. I mean, I was going to say too, I kept my paperwork from that event, from the values event, because it was meaningful to me. And I found out a lot about myself. I value humor so much. I value these things that I didn't really think about before. So knowing that and just maybe even just setting it as a background on my phone or something to be able to tune back into and really just start to try and make sure things are aligned, make sure my choices are aligned or my actions are aligned with my own independent values.
Because they are guideposts truly to a wayfinding of yourself. When we talked about the map and like where you are, who you are, where you are, because that's a big dictator of where you're going to want to go. Like, when we talked about goal setting, well, what do I value? I heard this too, talking about political disagreements. And I thought it was really, really valuable. It was like they did a study and what came out of it was it's really easy to look at the other side and think, oh, they hate me, one, and two, they're dumb. They don't care, rather to dismiss. And both sides can feel this way. And they saw that what's really actually happening, it's that there's two different value systems interacting. And to not go too far into politics, because it's not really my jam in terms of this podcast, but just to state that when there's an issue, it's easy to look across the aisle and say, I care so much about this. How can you not care about this in the way that I care about it? But really the other side is just caring about it in a different way. And it's based on their values. So we aren't at odds. We just have different values. And to respect someone's values, someone's values are their values. They're not wrong. Mm-hmm. If people value hurting other people, then that's a problem. If someone's
that's like
ideology
like
or
psychopathy, usually there's like something else going on,
or a cult that has gotten them really far off. But for the most part, inside of not being extreme, we just might be sharing different values and looking at the same problem very differently. It doesn't mean we don't care. We just care about different things.
I just imagine like, okay, yes. So then if you are just your values and like what you eat and what you consume, right? And the people that you hang out with, if you're just a meme of those things, I just imagine looking around and trying to picture what people would look like if they were just the representation of the bare bones of that.
It's an interesting thought experiment.
Like just like one little asparagus walking by with like a big chest or something.
It is fascinating when you do values work with a group, though, because you see the spectrum of how some people value things I do not value.
Right. Yeah.
Like some people value money, some people value fame. Some people value
knowledge.
Yeah.
Intellect.
Yeah. And it's just, you are kind of walking around interacting with other people's values all the time and your own, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very true. The identity part too, like your identity is built off of your values. And like you're saying, your values are running whether you're aware or not.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Ripple Affect. We're looking forward to exploring a different facet of change with you next Tuesday. Same time, same place, next week. A special thank you, love, and credit to the magnificent Mia Casasanta for this beautiful music you're listening to right now.